Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I am so excited to be here with photographer John Shearer, celebrity photographer. He and I met in the very early 2000s when I was working at MTV, and I would hire John to shoot a lot of events like the MTV Video Music Awards, and he's now probably photographed every musician or celebrity you could think of who's walked the red carpet since that time. John, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. It's so good to see you and see your face and hear your voice. It's been so many years.
I know, it's been
Excited
so
when you
long.
told me to do this.
Of course, I'm so excited. Do you remember how we met?
Yeah, I kind of do remember how we met. I think I was like 19 or 20, right?
I don't remember.
20 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
um, and so I was young and I was shooting concerts in San Francisco and started working. A colleague worked at SonicNet. And SonicNet was a division of MTV, I guess, in San Francisco. And then
Okay.
that whole, I don't know if the whole office closed or the whole company closed, but it folded under your department in New York.
Hmm.
Um, and this is, I mean, it's so odd because that was very early in the days of even websites and .coms. And the concept of MTV producing their own content specifically for online platforms was probably totally new at the time, I assume.
Hmm.
You were probably their first photo editor to work in the online world, right?
I was not the first. I may have been the second.
Yeah, yeah. But it was all very new. MTV obviously had a handful of photographers that worked into the press department, Kevin and those guys who've been doing it for years. But this was the first time that MTV.com was allowed to have their own content, which is how we met. And in addition to that, would photograph concert tours. Back then, you would run stories on every tour, I think, on the MTV.com website. So I would shoot the first date or the Bay Area date of all those tours as well.
Hmm. Oh my gosh, so much fun. So you were shooting for me. Was that before you joined Getty?
Well, at the time it was Wire Image. And I
Hmm.
believe, let's see, maybe it all happened right around the same time. Back then, I was talking to Kevin Mazer, who founded Wire Image. And I was a young concert photographer and just trying to figure out what I could do with my pictures. And they were looking actively to sign new photographers because it was a new company. And that's kind of how I got involved. But to be honest, having my access at the MTV shows and, you know, a lot of the stuff that you commissioned me for was kind of my big break and my foot in the door because there's not that many people that get to do that. In the past, there'd only been a few people with that type of access. And thanks to you, maybe I was the third or the fourth that was added. And in the last 20 years, it's still the four of us. So that was a huge help. And I think the second VMA show I shot in 2003 was the year, you know, Britney and Madonna kissed. And there was only a couple of us that got that photo, although we all had it from different angles. So that was kind of a huge break in my career as well, because it turned out to be kind of an iconic moment for MTV.
So you were in San Francisco, and then
Yeah.
did you live in New York?
No, never.
You were in Los Angeles after that?
Yeah, I went to school in San Francisco, stayed a little after, then moved to LA for roughly a dozen years. And then 5 years ago, moved to Nashville here, where I'm focusing more. I'm still working with musicians, but doing a lot more studio work and album covers and advertising and that kind of thing. Um, as I kind of got burnt out on the daily grind of late night event coverage. You know, when you start a family and everything, it sucks to not be home for dinner every night and get home at midnight and then have to get up at like 5 a.m. So it's a big lifestyle change.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, let's take a look at some of your images.
Let's do it. What do you got?
All right, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
All right, can you see it?
Yep.
So, Ariana, where was this?
This was at the Grammys this year. It's Ariana in the audience at the Grammys. And what I started doing, all the other photographers, there's only a couple photographers that kind of roam in the audience and backstage, and they're all kind of using their SLRs with direct flash, shooting, you know, like the weekly magazines and websites like that style of photography. But a few years ago, I started just exclusively bringing a Leica with a fixed lens and shooting all available light at high ISO and just trying to do something different than everyone else because to be honest, you don't need 3 or 4 people taking the same exact type of pictures in the same style. And I felt like doing something more creative. I started bringing the Leica and getting images like this, and very specifically, the talent really gravitated towards it. So I didn't stop. So this is kind of the style of photography I've been doing at award shows for the past few years in the audience and backstage.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get some of those opportunities? Well, some
But
of
we talked about the MTV opportunity.
the
The MTV opportunity was all due to you, and then I, signed with Wire Image, and then years later, Getty actually bought or absorbed Wire Image, and I came as part of that merger. And Getty's a lot of these award shows, like the Grammys specifically, Getty is the house crew for. So there's only like 3 people roaming in the audience doing this type of work, and we all work with Getty because of their exclusive deal with the Recording Academy.
So are they the reason you get these more intimate? And I know you do some dressing room stuff. Tell us about the backstage stuff.
Yeah. So it's different with every award show. In general, Getty will be commissioned to be the exclusive photography provider for the event, like at the Grammys.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, each photographer kind of has their own relationships and they approach it differently. For me, I've known Ari for 15 years since she was a kid, honestly, on a Nickelodeon show, and she's always great in front of the camera. But
Oh, wow.
Everyone has their own relationships. I think you need to make relationships with everyone from the talent to the production company putting the show on, the show director, the stage manager, the record labels behind them, and then even all the way down to makeup artists, hairstylists, very importantly, security.
Yeah.
Kind of like if you're backstage wandering around, this is all about trust and relationships, and they're not just going to let any random guy walk in a dressing room. There's always a security guy standing at the door. That's always the guy you want to be friends with because he's kind of the gatekeeper if he's going to let you in or not.
Mm-hmm.
But while the access, it's sort of like the credential is given through Getty and gives us the ability to have that access. But then Kevin, Jeff, and I, whoever else it is, Kevin Mazer I'm referring to, all kind of have our own relationships with everyone I just mentioned. And we're kind of on our own to work our way into dressing rooms or get people to pose in the audience or whatever we want to do. Based on our relationships. Just because you have the credential doesn't mean the artist is going to let you go in their dressing room with them.
Right. That's amazing. So when you're with a celebrity, how do you get that? How do you get them to feel trust with you, or how do you develop that relationship? Do you have any tips?
It takes time. I mean, a lot of these artists remember what photos were taken of them and what was released and what was put out there. And, say if I caught Ariana eating in between commercial breaks and the photo went out there, she's going to remember who took that photo and where it went, and she is not going to let you take a picture of her again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the case with a lot of artists. So it's all based on trust. It's based on trust and their ability to trust which photos you're going to release of them and know that, honestly, I think be shown in a flattering light, they're going to be good pictures. Oftentimes we actually let the artist approve the photos that go out so that we know they're going to be happy, whether it's on the camera or sitting with editors in a dressing room after the fact. They control what's released as opposed to, they need to know it's not some, like I said, paparazzi guy that might be just trying to catch a photo of them drinking or eating or something to make a few bucks extra, I guess.
That's great. I love that you started doing this black and white Leica. Is it film?
It's not film. It's a Leica Q2 digital, but it's with a fixed 28mm lens. And that's all I bring, the one camera and the one lens to shoot these kind of photos. And it really forces you to kind of be a lot more creative than you would be otherwise.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, let's look at another one.
Okay.
Tell us about this one.
This is Jimmy Allen. I threw this in there as some of my recent work. This is shot in my studio here where I am now. And it was an album cover shoot for his next album, Betty James. And Jimmy and I have developed a good relationship. And I think like 4 times a year, maybe every 3 months, he just calls me to come in for a few hours and go through as many outfits as we can and get, 10 looks in 4 hours just so he has stuff to release even in the next 3 months. Because the way these artists work, they're going to set aside photos for the album cover, but then they need to be posting daily on socials. And suddenly, traditionally artists used to shoot, they might do a big production full day shoot like once every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
But now with the way people consume media on socials and Instagram and single releases and posting about tour dates and everything,
Yeah.
they need fresh content like weekly. So a lot of artists like Jimmy, I'm just working with very, very frequently to get as much new stuff and as much quantity as we can for him to release.
That's beautiful. Okay, here's another one.
This is Miranda Lambert. This is for a Apple iTunes exclusive album, or behind the stories of her Wild Card album, I think that she did.
Mm-hmm.
Also at my studio here in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
As you'll notice, that the bulk of what I'm doing here now is working with country musicians and doing album covers and advertising and everything. I still do all the award shows, all the major award shows, the Grammys and the SAG Awards and the CMA Awards and all that stuff. And I traditionally travel for all of them a couple times a month, although this year's a little bit different. We're doing stuff remotely and everything. But the work that I do here in Nashville is primarily studio work like this.
Beautiful. What's this one?
So this is, what we mentioned. I think this is the second or third award show you and I had worked together on. It was my second VMAs. We had a hard time even getting me access back then, as you probably remember, because MTV was not used to giving access to their social or their online platforms, right? I
You
mean,
had more access than I did.
what?
Said you guys got more access than the
Oh, I know.
photo editors.
And the ironic thing is now at MTV and CMT shows, that's more important than any other department, because that's the best way to promote and advertise the show is through social platforms. I'd say even more important to MTV than after coverage in like an Us Weekly or People magazine, because they're just trying to get tune in and eyes on the show, right? So getting content out on Instagram and socials now is more important than ever. But a lot of people ask about this photo and, did you know what was going to happen and where and everything? And when we cover award shows, generally I will shoot all the rehearsals, which is usually 4 days of rehearsals, so you know what's going to happen and where, so that you're prepared when the show day comes. But every once in a while, like in this case, there's a performance. It's basically been kept secret from all production. There was no rehearsal. There was probably either a rehearsal offsite or a completely closed private rehearsal late before that we weren't invited to, and maybe only a handful of people knew about. We didn't know the kiss was going to happen. I happened to be in the right place at the right time. Like I said, there were a few photographers who got it. Everyone's just from a slightly different angle. Luckily, I was directly in front of them. The other ironic thing is, these two kissed. She kissed Britney, and then she also leaned to her left and kissed Christina Aguilera, as you'll remember. But this is the photo that lived. And, both Britney and Christina were, I'd say, equal celebrities at the time. And I don't know why that one didn't really have the same legs this one does. This is the one everyone remembers. And there's a whole other photo. It's exactly the same with Christina to her left. And I don't know, it just didn't get the press this one did.
Is this your biggest moneymaker?
It's definitely, probably, but it's definitely my most well-known photo.
Yeah.
I mean, for anyone that grew up, who's our age and was watching MTV in the late 90s, early 2000s or whatever, I think this is a photo that everyone remembers, or a moment everyone remembers.
Yeah.
MTV used to always say anything can happen and anything will happen. And there were all kinds of crazy moments like that. And things did happen that weren't expected and weren't planned for. This year's, now that it's not a live show and everything's kind of pre-taped and all that, nothing surprising can really happen anymore, but hopefully we'll be back to that next year.
Yeah. Did you ever shoot the Super Bowl halftime show?
Yeah, we did the one with Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake.
Oh my gosh, you were
there. Which you sent me to, I assume. It was in Texas. Although the ironic thing about that, the Super Bowl halftime show, at least, that was the only year MTV produced it. That's why I was there.
Yeah. And the first and the last.
And the iconic moment from that is obviously the wardrobe malfunction on Janet Jackson. And I don't have that photo because it was a circular stage in the middle on the floor of the stadium. And there were probably 3 of us shooting it. I don't know if it was rotating, if they were running around or whatever, but honestly, I didn't even see that happen from where I was.
Yeah.
I have different moments that were at the front of the stage on my end that happened on the other end, and it's just a total luck of the draw thing. But that's another example of MTV, what anything can happen and will, and there's always lots of surprises, although I guess the Super Bowl or the NFL didn't want any of those kind of surprises. So that hasn't happened again.
Not a good thing. All right. I love this one. So intimate.
Yeah, so this is at the ACM Awards in Vegas last year.
Uh-huh.
And this is obviously Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, who are Nashville friends here, actually. So we
Mhm.
have that relationship. And she actually is really into photography and really likes Leica photography in black and white and everything. So they love this photo, and I've sent it both to them, and I think they have it framed, and I have it framed on the wall of the studio as well. But I think it's a good example of the type of moments I'm trying to capture, the behind the scenes moments. I think it's real and it's authentic. The thing about the Leica is it's very small and discreet, and it's completely silent. So if I'm shooting this kind of stuff, it's not distracting at all, and they might not even know I'm taking the picture.
Mhm.
Whereas a lot of other photographers would probably walk up to them, pose them, have them smile, use a flash, and get the typical grip and grin photo.
Mhm.
And magazines like People in Us Weekly love those kind of pictures as well, and it could be on the cover of those, and they go everywhere. But I'm basically trying to do something different than the other photographers are by capturing these type of moments
Yeah.
and
So
using the available light and shooting black and white. Hardly anyone's doing that. There's a guy I really look up to named Greg Williams. I don't know if you're familiar with his work,
mhm.
and he's based in London, and he does the same thing. He works with Leica, and he's done the Oscars and the Golden Globes, similar type of photography. And then I've been able to do this at really all the music award shows, the SAG Awards,
Mhm.
Billboards, American Music Awards, then all the country shows, ACM, CMA, CMT, and all my clients really love it. But a lot of the inspirations from him, from Greg Williams, if you want to look up his work.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, we have one more.
What else do we have? Oh, this is Prince. Okay.
When
In
was
there.
this?
Oh, this is a good, so this is the second time I worked with Prince. The first time I shot a small secret show he did at what was Tower Records on Sunset. He did those private late night shows.
Uh-huh.
I think it was probably a midnight show. I don't remember, but I was in bed around 3 a.m. after the first show and got a call that woke me up saying, Prince wants to know if you can meet him at a bar and show him the pictures you took tonight, which you almost think is a prank call, obviously.
Oh my God.
And it was a real thing. And I went and met Prince at a bar, and we sat at a booth, just the two of us, and he went through all my photos. So then I was invited back along with Kevin Mazer, who had the Prince relationship. Actually, that's how I ended up working with Prince, is through Kevin. He
Mhm.
couldn't make it out to that show, I believe, because it was probably so last minute. And Kevin lives in New York, and the show is in LA. And on this night, Prince did 3 shows down at LA Live. He did one at the Nokia Theater, and then I think it's called the Conga Room, and one other small venue they have there. This was the first of the 3. I love the photo. He couldn't be happier. At the next show, 2 hours later, I was in the front shooting as I was at this one, and Prince looked at me and he just said, don't take my picture. There's no photographers allowed. Get out. It's probably the most embarrassing moment of my career because he literally paused the show and threw me out in front of the entire club or arena of people, even though I was working for him and he owned the photos and he was paying me and he knew I was there, but that's neither here nor there. He's Prince and he can do whatever he wants, I guess. And then the third show rolled around and we were gearing up to go. And I said, honestly, I have my tail between my legs and it's like, I'm humiliated and I don't even want to be in there after what just happened. And I think they ended up putting me at the back of the room with the long lens or something so he wouldn't see me. But that was a crazy experience. And then I guess even crazier, my photo editor who I was working with at the time, again, Prince said, will you come back to my house so we can review and select pictures, which she did. I think she had to wait all night, like until sunrise, waiting for him, and came down and as he said on TV or whatever, he said, first I need to make you pancakes. We're gonna have a pancake breakfast and then we'll review pictures. And she'd been there for like 8 hours and it was morning by the time it happened. And this was all tough at the time, although it's all kind of awesome stories and memories to look back on now, I suppose.
Yeah.
Not many people photograph Prince. He never allowed photographers at his shows. It often takes someone on tour, but other than that, it wasn't like most concert tours where there's press or photographers shooting a few songs or anything like that. He was very selective with anyone that took his photos, and he always needed to own them.
Would you say that's one of your craziest experiences?
I think I would, yeah.
Yeah. What's been your favorite? What's been your favorite shooting experience?
Well, a couple artists I like. there's a few artists that I work with on a regular basis consistently. One of them right now is Bob Dylan. I've done a lot with for 7 years maybe now, and I've done a few of his anything he needs, whether it's an album cover or a magazine cover or a concert poster or a gallery opening, whatever it is, he'll have me shoot. This summer, I got to go to London with him to do his Hyde Park concert, and I had never shot him in concert, even though I've done all the portraits for years. He never really has anyone shoot his concerts. It's the same kind of thing, and he's not really interested in concert photography, but he invited me to do that, so that was an awesome experience. Taylor Swift's another one that I think I have a photo of behind me here, but I generally will go out for at least a couple of weekends on her concert tours and get different photos than the other press photographers are getting, because they're kind of with a long lens in the front. And what I'll do is I like to create photos that make people feel like they were there experiencing the show, not just kind of a headshot of Taylor Swift. But in the case of that one, I'm at the back of the stage, so you can see the whole stadium and arena and show the scope of the whole thing. And again, just getting moments and angles that other photographers aren't getting. I love working with her. Of course, I have the studio stuff here. Thomas Rhett's a good client of mine. I've done a few album covers for, but I really like collaborating with artists who I've worked with over and over, and we're kind of on the same page, and they tell me what concept they have or what they're looking for, and maybe I'm a step ahead of them, and we're all just creatively on the same page and collaborate, make these pictures together. So I don't know. That's a few examples of the ways I like to work with people, I guess.
So how has this year been for you? What's it been like?
Yeah. So I went months without doing anything. And then I got a call out of the blue to direct a music video for Martina McBride, which was new to me. I'd never directed. I've been talking about directing and wanting to direct, but I sort of just haven't had the time to deal with it. And, after having a few months off, I did have the time to deal with it. So I got to make a music video. That was cool. But really, production in Nashville's back to normal, or the new normal, I guess. I feel like I'm busier than ever. We have lots of production happening here because New York and LA are still kind of at a standstill. In Nashville, for example, I think today we had 22 COVID cases, so it's kind of under control here.
Yeah.
In addition, all the award shows that I would normally be shooting, or a lot of them, instead of getting canceled, they were postponed. And then there's a lot of pre-tape performances. So like the ACM Awards, which would normally be a one-day shoot in Vegas, now might be 10 days of shooting in Nashville, because you have an artist performance a day that you're shooting at different locations. And same with the, CMT Awards, maybe the CMA Awards, I don't know. But what used to be one day of work for each of those shows has turned into like 2 weeks of work. So that's awesome. However, I mean, and I'm not complaining about anything, because I'm super thankful to be working. Don't get me wrong, but each shoot day does require 2 negative COVID tests. So I get tested between 1 and 2 times every day. I just came from my COVID test now. So everyone on the crew has 2 negative tests. We all wear face masks and face shields on top of them. It's very scaled back. We don't have on-site support in terms of photo editors or techs or DITs or IT people setting up the lines and everything. What we're doing now is transmitting photos wirelessly from the camera to someone in New York, and they're editing and transmitting the photos. So again, I'm super thankful to be working. I'm glad production is happening here. It is like a few times more work than it would have been in the past, because someone else would be setting up the internet lines and editing the photos. And, I'm kind of doing it all myself now and transmitting. But I can't reiterate enough that I'm just happy to be working, because photographers in LA and New York, it just hasn't really come back there yet.
Yeah. Wow. Incredible year. What would you say in your career has been some of the best advice that you've gotten, or that you find yourself giving to other photographers? Or it could be any kind of advice.
Yeah, I kind of take a different approach, especially on the business side, because I think that, honestly, I think the best photographers are starving. A lot of the best artists in general are starving, because you can be a great creative or a great artist, but not know what to do with your work. And for me, I'm very into the creative, but I'm also very into the business side of it. I think whether it's through the relationships and trust I mentioned, before with the artists, their relationships with their teams, also having a good business sense, knowing how to market yourself, that's all as important, if not more important in my career than the photography. Of course, you have to take great pictures and deliver and execute the concepts they want and make the client happy.
Mm-hmm.
but you also have to know how to find clients, make clients, and maintain clients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that business side of it, I think, I think I focus on more than a lot of other photographers do. I don't think I'm the greatest photographer or whatever. I think I'm working a lot because I know how to maintain a business side of it. And I think a lot of artists don't have a business sense.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend, a couple of things, I don't even know if I'd go, I majored in photojournalism. I wish I had a degree in marketing and business, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
because I think I feel like I could be self-taught as a photographer. And I think I was self-taught as a photographer. But I would love an actual background in business so I know how to run a business and be successful.
Yeah.
And what I would say to photographers working now is also, it seems, especially in the music business, in terms of touring artists and everything, the concept of just a still photographer, I think, is kind of dying. And did I go away?
No, I still see you.
Okay. Brain went blank. Well, a lot of the younger people doing this stuff now, they're really more content creators. There's not really a such thing as just a still photographer working on concert tours. There is a lot of work still in the music business, but all artists take someone on tour to do, motion or video, stills, socials, edit, upload, meet and greets. Maybe they run the website and they wear like 5 hats.
Mm.
They'll, even an artist like Thomas Redd or someone that I work with, will have someone full-time on tour doing that with him. And he might bring me out for one weekend if he wants to focus just on still photography. But if you really want to stay busy, in my opinion, you can't just be a still photographer. And very specifically, you should be doing motion, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not, to my own fault, and as I just said, I've just started directing, and I think, I'd like to go that route more because, the future is not just in still photography. People are looking for all kinds of stuff now.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. I mean, everyone in advertising will tell you the same thing. That's really smart. So, have you marketed?
To that point, I do a lot of advertising shoots now. And when I do, they're generally celebrity endorsed, and the artist or musician or celebrity, whatever, brings me in or recommends me, and that's how I get the job. But they will say, do you do motion and stills? And in the past, I haven't. I've just done stills. So I've had to commission out, a director and DP and everything to do the motion side, when really they want me to do it all myself, and I should be doing it all myself. So it would be smart to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like most of your career has been relationship building. Have you marketed yourself in different ways through like email or print? What have you done for
I
marketing?
do that, and I have an agent here who helps with that a lot. I also, in normal times, which is not right now, if I'm not shooting, I will try and have at least 1 to 2 meetings in person every day.
Wow.
Sitting down with a client, or even just having lunch with a client. I feel like a lot of people just hire kind of the last person they heard from or saw. And if you're out of sight, out of mind, I think you can get forgotten really quickly.
Yeah.
And it might go 3 years where I don't hear from a certain client or record label. And then, we go to lunch and it's like, oh, I'm glad I saw you because it turns out I have 3 shoots next week or whatever. And, I'd love to hire you for them. So I think, staying at front and center and showing your face a lot helps. I do quarterly email marketing, and marketing on Instagram's huge for me.
Yeah.
I'm constantly sharing photos from any shoot that I can. And I have a lot of artists that reach out to me through Instagram because they see other artists tagging me in photos. And, it might be a younger artist who loves a photo you just showed of Miranda Lambert and wants to work with the photographer she works with, or something like that. I also, especially right now, I'm constantly sharing photos of not only showing that we're working, but how we're working safely. Busy day on the set, just got my COVID test. Here's my face mask. Here's what I'm going through. But, we are able to work. We are able to produce content. We figured out how to do it safely. These are the measures we take. And, I'd love to work with you as well.
Yeah.
And like I said, I have an agent who does outreach on my behalf as well. So it's kind of all of it.
That's amazing. It's so cool to catch up with you. And I'm so excited to see. I can't wait to see your directing portfolio.
I'll have to send it to you. And like I said, it was awesome just to see your face and hear your voice after, what did we decide, 14 years?
I know. We should have a Zoom review.
Part of my career. I'm so happy to do this.
Thank you. That's so nice of you to say that. And thanks again for being with me today.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
for,
anything you need.
yeah, and for everyone else who's watching, thank you for watching. And don't forget to vote. And I'll see you soon. Maybe
Thank you all.
online. Bye, John.